Okay, the issue that I decided to speak on is sexual education in grades K through 12, which is kindergarten through the senior year of high school. And I'll be discussing why it's important, why it interests me, the pros and cons of it, including opinions from people who oppose and support it, as well as my own personal opinion. Okay, I wanted to start off with why sexual education interests me. Sexual education has always fascinated me. I actually used to want to be a sex therapist. It's just something that's really important to me. I also think that sexual education is very prominent in our culture right now. It's all over the place. There's even a show on MTV about sexual education, and it actually has a whole bunch of people get together and ask questions to professionals, and they answer them, and they air that on television for everyone to see. So I think that everybody is kind of looking for answers right now. People that aren't very educated are very forth about asking questions, and I just think it's really important to speak about. Okay, I wanted to give a little brief history on sexual education. Sexual education actually started in schools in the 1830s, but back then it was super, super strict about just abstinence before marriage. There was absolutely no talk about STDs or HIV, none of that, just basically don't have sex. It was, they even gave pamphlets out to the children about how it's evil and how you just shouldn't do it. Like, don't ask questions, just don't do it until you're married, which is not a very good way of doing things. Then in 1913 in Chicago, there was actually the very first record of sexual education becoming prominent in high schools. Chicago was the first ever city to do that, but then a Catholic church actually launched a campaign against it, and it got completely removed again from schools, and it was forced to close. The superintendent was actually even fired because of it. For the next 100 years, many changes occurred, including sex ed becoming a very strong force in high schools nowadays, and it still to this day is picketed against and very greatly frowned upon by some people, believe it or not, even in this day and age. Why is sexual education important? Well, the reason why sexual education is important is because kids know nothing. Literally nothing. Unless you tell them, they know nothing. Okay, on PlannedParenthood.com, there's actually a list of a few questions asked by middle school and high school students, and they are, can you get pregnant the first time? Birth control pills prevent STDs, right? If you pee after sex, doesn't that mean you can't get pregnant? Is it okay to use a plastic sandwich bag as a condom? You tell me. Is sexual education important? There are two different sides to sexual education, those who oppose it and those who support it. There are actually three different kinds of sexual education: abstinence-only programs, comprehensive sexual education programs, which teaches you basically anything and everything, and then condom instruction, which includes how to apply a condom. Some people believe that only abstinence should be taught, and some parents and even citizens are completely comfortable knowing that teens are learning how to put a condom on a banana at school. It really just depends on your viewpoint. Statistical wise, those who endorse full sex ed in schools is a whopping 82%, which is awesome. It's actually proving that citizens are beginning to recognize the dire need for programs like this in schools. But those who endorse only sexual abstinence is a measly 36%. But the government has actually spent over $1 billion supporting abstinence-only programs. So to me, that shows that the government even has their head in the sand and is just wanting to teach abstinence. They're really just ignoring the real issues here. Many parents on the opposition believe that talking about sexual education in schools will just drive their kids to become really curious with sex and become sex monsters. Not true. It's educating them. The other side, who supports sexual education, understands that it's human nature, a natural instinct, and they prefer if their children were prepared and knowledgeable about the issues. So it's just different. But it's good that 82% actually support sex ed in school. My position on the topic is pretty obvious at this point. I fully support sex ed in schools. I do believe that actual real sex ed should not start until the 6th grade. Like, I think it should start when puberty starts, or the very beginning parts of puberty. The K through 5, I think they should just have their puberty videos, like you know what I'm talking about, the puberty videos. Everyone's watched the puberty videos in elementary school. I think that's all they need. But as soon as you get to 6th grade, I think you should start learning about HIV and STDs and pregnancy and what causes pregnancy, and how to properly apply a condom. I do understand the whole issue with parents wanting to teach their children and parents wanting to have control, which that's perfectly fine. That's their child. There should probably be a parental consent form with all of the issues labeled on it, what they'll be talking about, and the more racier issues to be talked about, like in high school. But I do believe that sex education should start in the 6th grade, because there are way too many pregnant middle schoolers running around. It's just not okay. Many parents argue that if their children were to take part in sexual education programs, that their innocence will be lost. I'm pretty sure if a kid is curious and has sex and is ignorant about the issues and ends up getting pregnant, then their innocence will be lost a lot faster. Do you really want to bury your head in the sand and say, oh, my kid's not doing it, and then wake up the next day and find out that your kid has impregnated half of the cheerleading squad because they thought that they could use a plastic sandwich wrapper as a condom?